Now, my beady little eye spotted another shoe bargain over the weekend and they've just arrived. So we're going to have a look at these Redwing boots. They are full grain leather. They're actually in really good condition. There's no breaks or cracks in the leather. They're just a bit dried out. And obviously the elephant in the room is they're covered in paint. So today I am going to clean off the paint. I'm going to strip them back, give them a wash and use the usual suspects. I'm going to use my saddle soap, my Saphir Renovateur, Saphir Medaille door, that's pigmented shoe cream, that's going to fix the colour. And finally, I'm going to polish them with some wax shoe polish. And that is in oxblood, which is closer to the colour of the shoes, the boots. So first thing I'm going to do, as ever, is I've taken the laces out. I'm going to put the shoe trees in. As you can see, they're dry around the toe. And as soon as I put the shoe trees in, it's going to stretch out the leather. And it just makes that a lot easier to work with. Put the second one in. Great. Now for this, to take the paint off, it's gloss paint, and that's quite handy actually, because gloss paint tends to sit on the surface of the leather rather than soaking in, so it doesn't change the pigmentation of the leather, it doesn't dye it. So the thing we need to do is take a sharp steel bladed knife. I'm going to use my trusty Swiss Army knife, and I'm just going to work at it. So if you can see what I'm doing. Now you'll always scrape off a bit of the leather, a bit of the surface of the leather when you take paint off like that. But don't worry about that, because we're going to repair that as well. So even though it scratches the leather, we're going to fix that after all the paint's been taken off. So let's just work away at this. When you see creases in shoes, work across the creases. If you go against the creases, you can damage the leather further. So try and go across the creases like that. Redwing boots are full grain leather, so they're very high quality and they are very robust. So don't worry at all if you look like you're scratching the leather. It's really not going to do it any harm. Incidentally, the soles are in need of a good clean as well. I'm not going to do the soles today. That's going to be in a separate video. I'm just going to do the uppers. Okay, that's one done. Now, as I said, they look awful now because the top layer of the leather has been taken off, and but that's totally natural, and we're going to fix that in the next step. Just going to do the other boot. There's not quite so much paint on this one. Right, put the knife away, don't need that anymore. Now, as you can see, they're now paint-free and in a bit of a sorry state. This is the bit I really enjoy because you're taking it from its worst state and lifting it back to where it needs to be. So let's get straight in with the saddle soap. Normally I do one boot first and then to show you the before and after, but the two boots in this case, the two boots were actually quite different, so it wouldn't have been as effective before and after as it normally would. So I'm just going to do both boots at the same time. Just going to get right in with the saddle soap all over, all around the sole, across the creases in the toe cap, around the welt. There's actually some damage to the sole of that boot, and I've got some contact adhesive that I'm going to use to stick that back together. It's not too bad. It does. These will need at some point a new sole, but there's still quite a bit of life left in these, so I'm going to go with these for just now until they need proper resoling. Right. Microfiber cloth. Okay, so that's just with the saddle soap and looking great. Certainly looking a lot better, but this is really just the start of the process. Put the saddle soap away, rinse that off. Next step is to give them some Renovateur, and as you could see before, they were very dry and in need of a bit of conditioning, so this is going to be great for deep conditioning of the leather, and don't need very much of this. If you've seen any of my other videos, you see we just do a few dabs. I think a little goes a long way. some of the Renovateur into the creases as well, just to ease those off as much as possible. Great. Now, just to even out the surface and make sure the Renovateur is evenly distributed across the surface and there's no blobs or lumps at all, just going to give them a brush. And then next step is to apply the Medaille door, and that's going to even out any colour imperfections where you've got some wear and tear or uneven colour on the boots. So before we do that, we need to let the Renovateur sink in and properly absorb, and then it'll take the next layer so much better. So I've left them for about 2.5 hours, and that is where we are now. So pretty good, I think you'll agree, but we can do better. First off, we're going to do the Medaille door. Now this is a burgundy colour, and so it has a bit of redness to it. I'm just going to use my fingers for this. I do prefer that over a cloth or a brush. As I've said before, the connection you get with the materials and the process is much better when you're using your fingers. It does stain, obviously, but as long as you're okay with that. Now this shoe cream is coloured, it's pigmented, so you can use it to correct unevenness in the colour or bits where it's been scratched or faded. You can also just fire straight in with the wax polish. That's obviously got a colour to it as well. So this is just 2 stages of the process. Now, because it's cream, it soaks into the leather. The wax sits on top of the leather and forms a waterproof barrier, what's called an occlusive layer. And so we need to wait, after we've done this, we need to wait, again, I would say an hour, hour and a half, to allow the cream to absorb fully. And then we're good to buff and go ahead with the wax. This doesn't take very long. But the Medaille door is a conditioner as well, so it's not just like a shoe polish. This soaks in, and when I get a new pair of shoes, chances are they've not had any care for a while, and these were certainly very dry when I got them, so they needed a bit of extra care. So that's why I did the Renovateur and the conditioning Medaille door, which helps with the softness and suppleness of the leather. I've said before, you don't need to do this every time. Most times you'll just be able to get away with just using the wax brush to buff, and the wax polish should be absolutely fine. But once we're doing a full strip down and restoration, especially when you've done things like removing paint, which can leave marks and leave damage to the leather, you need to take it back a level before you can build it back up again. And there's all sorts of other things you can do to remove marks. You can sand it, you can sand the leather. It's better not to sand full grain leather, because the full grain leather part of the beauty of full grain leather is it has a natural, it's the natural texture of the skin, of the animal's skin. And when you sand it, you're sanding away that natural texture. And obviously, the more you sand it, the thinner the leather gets. So it does actually weaken it. It softens it, but it does make soft spots, which may be undesirable. But usually, when you're sanding away scratches, there'll be surface level scratches that you're literally maybe taking away, you know, a fraction of a millimeter of the top of the layer. So it's not something you would do all the time. It's literally for working on specific damage. And in a second, I'm going to show you the texture of the leather. And with full grain leather, you've got a natural texture. With most leathers that are used in shoes, this is why I like working with Redwings, because full grain is quite unusual in modern shoemaking, because it's more expensive and it's higher quality and it lasts longer, and the more your shoes last, the fewer of them you're likely to buy. So it's not something that shoemakers tend to use today, if I'm honest. So it's nice to get a traditionally made pair of shoes, and you can see it really well on the side there. That's the natural grain of the leather, and that's what you want to try and preserve. So that's both shoes have now been treated with the Medaille door. So my fingers, look at the state of that. That'll just wash off. Anyway, going to leave that another couple of hours and come back, give them a buff, and then finish off with the wax polish. Join me later. So let's have a look. That's after a couple of hours, just with the Medaille door. So what I'm going to do now is use the buffing brush. Great, so there we are, already looking really good. Final touch is going to be putting some shoe wax on and bringing them up to a nice shine. I'm going to use a cloth for this. For this, I'm just using a bit of an old shirt, and quite simply just wrap the cloth around the two fingers, give it a couple of twists, keep it nice and tight on the fingers, and then just get going. If you do find you need more wax, then use more layers. Don't try and scoop a big clump of wax to use. A small amount of wax and more layers is the secret to a well waxed shoe, a well polished shoe. And this should bring it up to a lovely shine. Now I do want to invent a shoe vise, something that will clamp the shoe in place steady enough for me to polish it, so I'm not holding it with one hand, polishing it with the other. Obviously when you're shining your own shoes, when your foot is up on a block, on a polishing box, or you're shining somebody else's shoes, there's an obvious point that there's a foot in the shoe that's keeping it nice and steady. when you're doing a shoe like this, you don't have anything to keep it steady. I'm looking for a device that will clamp the shoe by the heel and keep it steady. When it comes to the polishing with the cloth, and I want to use two hands, it's very tricky. And I have to employ my my thighs as a clamp, and it's not ideal. So if anybody knows of a device that can be used to do that, to perform that function, then please let me know. Right, that's that. Now you can't really see this part of the process, but I am shoes between my thighs, and because I'm using two hands and the polishing cloth to get the toe nice and shiny. And all that's left for me to do is replace the laces. And we're going to go top right to bottom left, and then over and over. And that's the finished product. So if you think back to where we started, I will show a quick recap of where we started. I think you'll agree the transformation is stunning. It's remarkable. So if you like this sort of thing, why don't click subscribe so you'll get all of my essential guide for the modern man, and you'll learn more tips and tricks as we go along our journey together. Anyway, see you next time. Take care. I'll see you very soon.